Today, I'm taking a look at the Nike Alphafly versus the Adidas Adios Pro. .11 miles, 7 minutes 49 seconds per mile, 154 beats per minute on average for the workout today in the Nike Alphafly. Today's workout was 3 times 3 mile repeats at marathon power, which is 236 watts for me. So that would be the equivalent of like what I think I can run a marathon at today, not what my marathon goal pace would be. And I came in on an average of just under what would be a BQ pace for me for today. I also did the similar workout earlier in the week in the Adios Pro on Sunday. Same thing, 3 times 3 miles at marathon power, coming in again at a similar pace for all of those marathon miles. Now, taking a look at these shoes, we've got marvels of modern technologies in each of these shoes. In the Alphafly, we've got Atom Knit, which is a basically see-through material that is yet somehow seemingly indestructible for the upper. Below that, you've got Zoom X foam for the midsole with a carbon fiber plate, as well as 2 giant airbags underneath the pads of your foot in the forefoot here, in giving what I feel is almost like a double carbon effect to the shoe. It is absolutely fantastic to run in. In the Adios Pro, what we have is a cellar mesh, which is another seemingly transparent and indestructible upper material, giving a very comfortable fit, a very traditional Adidas racer fit that many people have come to love. Underneath the upper, we've got a midsole full of Lightstrike Pro, which is Adidas's newest foam for this year. And we have a carbon fiber plate in the rear part of the shoe, so from like the arch back into the heel, and then from the arch forward, we have metatarsal rods which line up with the bones of your foot, which act like a carbon fiber plate, but my understanding is they could be individually tuned so that some are more rigid and some are more flexible depending on which bones need which kind of support. So it's more finely tunable. Now, with all that technology aside, I think the better way to kind of cut to the chase of both of these shoes is to say that this Alphafly is the shoe that broke the 2-hour marathon barrier, and this Adios Pro is a shoe that has the current world half marathon record, and also, I believe, the fastest marathon run in 2020. So let's take a look at each of these shoes individually. As far as the stats go in each of these shoes, they both come in with 40 millimeters of stack height in the heels, the max allowable under World Athletic rules for road marathon shoes. And the Alphafly has 36 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot because it has a 4 millimeter drop. And the Adios Pro has 31.5 millimeters of stack height in the forefoot because it's got an 8.5 millimeter drop. Each of these comes in relatively lightweight for all the shoe that you're getting in each of these. The Alphafly coming in a little bit lighter at the men's size 9 for the US at 7.4 ounces and 8.0 ounces for the Adios Pro. So what is it like to run in each of these shoes? As I mentioned at the top of the video, these shoes spare no expense. They have the latest in running shoe technology. Both of these shoes I've run in at marathon paces and I run in them at threshold paces, and I think that they both do just fantastic jobs at each of those two levels of effort and even beyond that, so they can go even faster than your threshold paces, and they're definitely up to the task. There's certainly a lot of room in terms of horsepower for you to pick up the pace even faster. The only thing that I think is going to limit them from being used as, say, maybe a 10K or a 5K shoe, I know a lot of people are using them that way, but you start to get a little bit concerned in some of those races as the speeds get faster because the stack heights on these shoes are starting to get a little bit tall. The other thing that I think is common to both of these shoes is that I am definitely getting my toes crunched like crazy. The Alphafly has been just demolishing my big toe on my right foot. The Adios Pro, for some reason, has been really attacking my left pinky toe and the next toe, I guess the ring toe on my left foot. Both of those toes are definitely taking a beating. So my feet are hurting after all these runs. Not so much from this perspective of like they're taking impact from road miles, because both of these shoes are doing a fantastic job at absorbing road impact, and both of these shoes are doing a great job of helping me feel really powerful and strong through either a threshold workout or the marathon workouts that I did in these shoes this week. But the pain that I'm feeling, the only pain that I'm feeling from these shoes is just that my toes are getting crunched. I've tried different types of socks, different thicknesses, thin socks, thick socks, tall socks. Doesn't matter what I put in them, my toes just get crunched. But I feel like that's a relatively small price to pay for this kind of performance. It's absolutely fantastic. Specifically talking about each of these shoes, what is it like to run in them? I think the Adios Pro is a much firmer ride, but by no means it is a firm shoe. Both of these shoes are very bouncy, very springy to run in, and after your foot compresses the foam as you hit it, the carbon elements or the other elements in the case of the Alphafly, that Zoom Air Pocket, both spring back to life to give you that really powerful feeling of push every time you're pushing off into the next stride. So, but because the light strike foam is a bit firmer than the Alphafly, I do think that the Adios Pro is going to be more suited to the half marathon. And we've indeed seen that a lot of half marathon races that have been going on. Maybe that's just a consequence of everything that's going on in 2020, that we've seen more half marathons and marathons. But we've seen the Adios Pro do quite well in a lot of half marathon races this year. And I can certainly see why the pros are absolutely loving this shoe for that half marathon distance. I think this shoe just loves to be at around threshold pace. At marathon pace for me, this shoe actually reminds me a lot of the Vaporfly Next percent. And again, something we've seen in a lot of half marathon races this year is that at least not only from the starting line, but also on the podium, what we're seeing a lot is that the Adios Pro is doing really well and the Vaporfly Next percent are doing really well at that shorter distance of the 13.1. I do feel like the responsiveness of the shoe and then the amount of squishiness that there is, or maybe isn't in here, is very reminiscent of that Nike Vaporfly Next percent. But I do feel like this feels taller, and I feel like this is absorbing impact, I think, even a little bit better than that Vaporfly Next percent at that threshold pace. At the marathon pace, it's still doing a really fantastic job absorbing the impact of all those miles. But I just always feel like I'm trying to regulate the shoe. It's going to take a little bit more time for me to really dial in and get used to running at marathon paces for this shoe, the Adios Pro, if that's something that I was going to take to my next race. Now, running with the Alphafly Next percent, the Alphafly I think does much better at the marathon pace, and I think that it's just better tuned for that. The extra squishiness that's in here that is rescued by this carbon and then Zoom Air Pocket kind of like double effect, I think really suits itself much better for that longer distance when you're not necessarily pushing as hard, but you really want to be able to stay powerful and reserved through the majority of the marathon race. And so I'm much preferring it at those slower paces, I guess, of marathon effort versus, say, threshold effort. Don't get me wrong, this shoe is super exciting to run at threshold efforts as well. And even when I'm running at threshold, I'm still finding myself having to pull back because the shoe still wants to go even faster and wants to get pushed even further. So both of the shoes are extremely exciting. Both of the shoes are really easy to overdo it. But if I do have to kind of distinguish between the two, I would say that the Alphafly is the softer, squishier, more comfortable ride between the two. But I think that when it really comes to pushing the pace, I do like the Adios Pro because it is a little bit firmer. And when you are going faster, then that firmness becomes soft because you're hitting the ground harder, you're putting more forces into it. So it's all kind of working together to get to just the right level of responsiveness versus cushion. So which of these two shoes is better? I like the Adios Pro definitely for the half marathon and the Alphafly definitely for the marathon. But when it comes to a versus video, I feel like you've really got to pick one. And I'm going to give it this year to the Adios Pro. I think it's a fantastic marathon shoe, even though I think the Alphafly is a little bit better at the 26.2 distance. But it is a much better shoe, I think, for the half marathon and those threshold level efforts or efforts in that area. Plus, I just like the way it looks on my foot. It doesn't look as strange of a shoe. It just feels like a running shoe. It feels like just a normal shoe that I'm wearing. It doesn't look quite as kind of unusual. I can get over this, but it does still. I mean, there's no way around it. It's an unusual looking shoe. The Adios Pro, I feel like it has a little bit more of that sleeper look to it. I mean, it's hard to say like a bright yellow shoe with big black stripes on the side is a sleeper shoe, but as far as marathon race shoes go in 2020, it kind of is. I feel like since it can also handle marathon paces exceptionally well, and it does half marathon paces really well, and I do love the half marathon distance for racing, I'm going to give it to the Adios Pro this year. So those are my thoughts on the Alphafly versus the Adios Pro. I'm sure I just pissed off so many people. I'd love to hear about it all in the comments down below. Tell me why you think I'm wrong, or tell me why you think I'm right. I'd love to hear that too. Back me up here, guys. Throw me some support. Better yet, come by the live stream that I do just about every day on YouTube, 3 p.m. Central Time, right here on this channel. I'd love to talk to you guys about it more there. That's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video. Hopefully you guys are staying safe out there on your runs, and I'll see you in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?